Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to talk about what assassins you should pick and when. I was thinking about this topic a lot during my stream today. I played, I think, Nazebo, Vala, Greymane, Lunara. Like, I played so many different characters. It just got me thinking, like, which assassin is really the best right now? There's so many viable options. You know, there's a lot of good warriors right now between, like, Arthas, Anubarak, Diablo, Dahaka. And the support role, you've got a lot of people running Lucio, so all of a sudden you have that like big AoE healing thing, which we didn't really have as much for a little bit. You know, when Brightwing was really popular, people were like, oh yeah, you can't pick AoE damage versus Brightwing, but people haven't been talking about it as much with Lucio, but it's still just as relevant. So, you know, I think there's a lot of diversity in the draft right now, and hopefully this video can just clear up a little bit of confusion on like which assassins are your best options considering the given variables that you have. A couple things to keep in mind though, you always want a good split of damage when it comes to ability damage and physical. So by the end of the draft, make sure you kind of resolve that. Otherwise, it's way too easy for your opponents at counter. For example, an all mage team, well, just get a new Barak, and that's that. Easy win. Put that one in the bag. Game is over at draft. These kind of things are really important. And then blinds, of course, are the ultimate kryptonite for the auto attackers. So like Johanna and Artanis can just completely screw you over in draft. Early on in the draft, I think you should look to pick up the hybrid characters. That's like your Vala and your Greymane right now. Those are your strongest options. Vala in particular can do a lot of damage to the front line or the back line. With Rain of Vengeance, you can control bruisers. You can also use multi-shot or even like a strafe build to put a lot of damage on the back line. You can really rip up a character like Falstad very quickly. So she's very versatile, and you're always safe picking her early in a draft. Greymane right now as well, especially with the popularity of the Flask build. Greymane is a little bit more of a frontline shredder than Vala is, you know, a little bit more versatile. But at the same time, Greymane also puts a lot of poke out in the late game with those Flasks. And you don't even have to go Flask build. He's still really strong with just the straight up auto attack style as well. So as you get into the sort of midway point in the draft, that's when you want to start making sure that you get those big beefy S tiers of the damage class that you still need. When it comes to the auto attackers right now, you've got like Falstad and Tychus, who are fantastic and do their job very well. Tychus a little bit more of an asset versus a tank heavy composition, while Falstad just does a little bit better as a just general character. And on large maps, you get that global as well. On the other side of the field, for the mages, you want Gul'dan, Li Ming, and Nazebo. Those are the really key ones, in my opinion, at the moment. Gul'dan, of course, you get the Horrify, which can completely turn fights on its own. Li Ming is just like the ability to poke out a team and end the fight before it starts, pretty much. Nazebo, your late game power spike character, puts out huge numbers in team fights as well as you get into the late game. So, again, just bringing it back to, it's a split of the damage. Later in the draft is where you want to start looking at counters. Watch for stuff like blinds. You know, if there's a lot of blinds on the enemy team, you want to stay away from straight up auto attackers like anything like Raynor or Zul'jin, or even like Tychus can get pretty messed up with blinds. Even Vala to some extent, but just keep an eye on these things, especially later in the draft. Characters like Anubarak who just counter mages. You don't want to pick another mage once your opponent has Anubarak. That's for dang sure. Arthas is really popular at the moment. Kaeyoh actually does a really good job versus Arthas, I found. Arthas doesn't really have the mobility to dodge flame strikes, and Army of the Dead just gets completely crushed between Living Bomb and flame strikes, of course. So he loses all of that extra sustain that he normally gets out of his heroic. Let's see what else. You know, you have the option to go Zul'jin if the other team doesn't pick any blinds. That's a good way you can go as well. I still think Zul'jin is viable in those situations when they have nobody to actually shut you down. Another thing is take note of the healer that you're against. Healers like Lucio right now do so much AoE healing. Don't pick Nazebos and Lunaras versus a Lucio. I find that like that spread damage just gets completely mitigated. On the other hand, you have like Ariel, who can save people from Greymane Burst, but at the same time cannot deal with poke. Because like Ariel needs to be in a team fight to generate hope to be able to heal people. And if you're not team fighting, if you're just straight up poking an Ariel composition, she's going to totally be out of mana or hope and not have any way to heal her teammates. So poke does really well in those situations. Somebody like Li Ming is a great option if you're against an Ariel later in the draft. All right, so a couple of little things as well. You know, you've got you got to consider when you're picking squishies in the backline, Kael'thas and Lunara type characters. If you pick them too early on, it's very easy for the opponent to grab somebody like a Zeratul who can just teleport onto them. Kael'thas is so vulnerable to Zeratools. And I find that, if I see the enemy team picking up Kael'thas early on, that's the dream for me. I'm just going to lock in Zeratul, hit him with one combo of abilities, drop the VP on him, one more combo, and he's dead right after that. Let me just see if I have anything else here. That's pretty much it. This is just supposed to be a very general guidelines. I'm not going in deep on anything in particular. Just a quick recap. First, early in the draft, look to get the hybrids. They'll leave the least amount of counters on the table. Secondly, in the mid-draft, start looking at making sure that you have strong threats of ability and physical damage. Third, in the late stage of the draft, that's when you want to look for the hard counters based on your opponent's draft and the map that you're playing, of course. So, yeah, like I said, I know this is pretty general, just keeping a few things in mind, and I think you'll have a much easier time with drafting, just getting on the best DPS for whatever scenario, and if you run through this checklist in your head. In the future, I may go into more specific stuff for map drafts, but of course, this is all just focused on DPS, what I'm talking about. So I'm not saying you should just open up draft and ignore characters like Tassadar and Arthas and all these things. This is more, I'm just talking to you DPS players out there in particular. So let me know if it's something you like to hear more specific map type drafts for these kind of things. But with that, guys, good luck in your games. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.